Experience Gap, the Insight Shop to the rescue, where we turn customer nightmares into teachable moments for businesses. Each week, we bring you real stories of service breakdowns, highlight the moments that matter, and equip businesses with strategies to delight their customers. I'm Kate Conklin, the owner of the Insight Shop. I created this podcast to give customers a voice, to share their stories and frustrations, in hopes that companies would take notice, listen, and take action, as customers are your most important assets. Kevin Engelhardt is a lifelong customer support leader who fluently speaks customers. Kevin, it's great to have you on my podcast.
Thank you, Kate. It's great to be here.
So, Kevin, before you share your poor experience with your utility company, share with me and the audience some attributes that make experiences great.
You know, I've watched your podcast up to this and heard this question many times, and I kind of gave it some thought. And I thought, for great customer service, it should be like interacting with your grandmother. There should be the empathy, there should be the understanding, the flexibility, two-way conversation. That's what comes to mind when I think about great customer service.
Okay, wonderful. And I'm sure that you're going to highlight where that could have done better in your experience. So, if you could share with the audience your very frustrating experience with your utility company, what fell short, what happened, and how did that impact you?
I think with utility companies, it's usually frustrating anyway. It's a challenge. And so one of my family members sold their home back in November in Minneapolis. And we realized in January they had not disconnected their utilities. They hadn't stopped them. And so this bill kept going and they had this enormous bill. And so I was helping my wife work through this. And I called this utility company. And of course, I got oh, you're supposed to do that when the house sold. There's nothing more we can do to help you. And I explained, I have all the closing documentation. I can show when it happened. I had all my ducks in a row. And they said, sorry, nothing we can do for you. And so I said, well, I'd like to be escalated to your manager. So they did that. And of course, I got we'll put the message in. If anybody's available, they'll call you. And I waited and I waited. Somebody did call, and they did a great job of explaining how they can't help me. This cycle, probably for 4 days, I kept calling, and I got to where my script was telling them I'm going to continue to escalate until I get to the president. I want to talk to somebody. Sorry, we can't do that. Can't help you. You should have taken care of it when the house sold. Just continue. And so I did what every consumer does when they're upset. I went to social media. But I did it to find somebody in leadership. And so I found the VP of customer experience and the director of support. Used email finder, shot them an email and thought, I have nothing to lose. The VP responded within 10 minutes. I was very shocked. And at that point, he said, sorry, you're having to deal with this. Somebody will be back with you. And I thought, okay, he did his job. I'm forgotten. But the director actually reached out to me, said somebody's looking into this. We'll have it resolved for you by the end of the day. And they actually took care of it. We got all of the money back because they took the time then to call the person that bought the house that wasn't working with us, found out the date, closed it all out. It was perfect. So it's kind of a very frustrating to a great story, but it was very frustrating getting to that point. And having been in customer service for 30 years, I knew what was going on. Their scripts wouldn't allow them, the process wouldn't allow the front line to do more than 1 or 2 steps. And it wasn't until I got in front of someone in leadership and said, hey, this isn't working, basically, did they say, oh, well, we should take a look at this and see what we can do. And it was resolved within 4 hours.
Wow.
So very.
Do you believe that the vice president, when they sent you to the director and the director helped you out, that the director is now working with the contact center group to make adjustments?
It's interesting you asked that because I received an email from the vice president after it was resolved, and he said, we're going to look into why this happened. So again, a lot of great attention after I went to a lot of work to get there. But it seemed like this. I think it set in at that point that there's probably a problem.
And when you think about that story, what moment was really important for you to go right?
I think when it got to the point of hitting that circle of nobody's going to really help me, no matter how much I try to get past this second level, at that point it was like, I need to just throw the Hail Mary. And reaching out and actually having the two senior leadership individuals reach back to me, which at that point I was like, hey, maybe we're getting somewhere.
So, what moment was important to you in terms of what were your expectations? So, when you made that very first call, what did you expect should have happened?
Going into it with that very first call, I felt like I had all my ducks in a row. I felt like I had everything I needed. I had the legal documentation, I had all the dates, the names. When I called, I had hoped that, one, if they couldn't help me, they would continue to get me to someone that could help me and would actually listen to my story rather than just throwing up the wall, closing the door, saying, sorry, we can't help you, you should have taken care of it. It was simple. It's different if you call and say, I have a problem. Say, I'm sorry that's happening, there's nothing we can really do for you. But when you call and say, hey, I have this problem, I know how to resolve it, I have everything you need to resolve it and to prove my case, get me to somebody who will help me.
What were the biggest obstacles or frustrations you faced during those moments?
The dreaded, I'll put a message in and if somebody's available, they'll call you back. I despise that. I have written many scripts and it's just the challenge of trying to fit every scenario into one or two paths on a script journey. And then also having the individuals not have any empathy, having them not even want to begin to understand what my issue is. I'm just a person on the other end of the phone with a problem and they don't want to resolve it for me.
In summary, how should the experience with your utility company have gone for you?
Ideally, it would have been that first call. I've got the documentation. I have everything you need. I can't help you, but let me get you to X who can research this with you and help you resolve it. X might be one or two levels up, but I've found out later they had escalation specialists. First person, let me get you to an escalation specialist. They will see what they can do to assist you and get me out of the queue and get me to somebody that has time.
And you called 4 days, and not one time did you get escalated, even when you asked for it, correct?
Yeah, it would be just escalation to the leader, to the lead or the supervisor. So it was just that next level up. Nobody would go past that.
Interesting.
Yeah, even the lead would not let me escalate up to a manager at that point. And I'm sure there's notes, and as you read the notes, I probably sounded like the crazy guy after calling for the fourth day in a row. It should have been simple.
Kevin, what I heard is you had a family member that closed in a house. A couple months later, you're still getting a utility bill. You call with the documentation to say, hey, we sold the house, we don't live here, here's proof. And you had to make multiple phone calls, never getting it resolved. And then you had to go out on your own through social media and search for the right people to connect with. The utility company put a lot of effort on you that should have been handled by them. And it caused a lot of stress, frustration, and time you didn't need to be spending on this issue.
Absolutely.
So I'll leave you with this. According to the JD Power 2025 US Utility Digital Experience Study, 32% of utility websites and mobile apps fail to meet basic standards for easy navigation and design. And the American Customer Satisfaction Index for utilities in 2025 reported that overall residential customer satisfaction with utility companies slipped 1% to a score of 74, out of 100. So it shows a lot of room for improvement there. For utility companies and any company really, it's important to really listen and understand your customer's issue, show some empathy, and really help them resolve it, especially when you don't want to be putting extra work and effort on your customers if you want to keep them. So thank you, Kevin, for sharing your story about your utility experience and the disconnect between leadership and the front line. And thank you to our listeners for tuning into the Experience Gap, Insight Shop to the Rescue, helping businesses turn frustration into delight, one experience at a time.